Hi everyone, in this video we're making a food menu application in ASP.NET Core. We are covering here all the main concepts that we have been handling so far, and the main purpose of this project is storing data in the database and being able to display them dynamically in the application. So let's first create a new project. We will select the MVC template and let's give it a name like menu. Just leave this all by default. Okay, to begin with, let's go to the package manager and let's install the two or three things that we need for every project that we make. So the first thing is Entity Framework Core. Then we need the Entity Framework Core tools. And we need something from the SQL server. There are some commands here that we use to migrate our data to the database. So as you can see, we have these three things installed. Now we are ready to go. Let's go to the models and create a model first. Okay, so adding a class. I'm going to be naming this like menu. Okay, first we need to create some properties here. The first one is the int ID. We need the name. So we're going to be needing an image URL for the URL of the foods in the menu in order to put a picture there. And we need a double variable property for the price. Okay, let's add a new class now for the ingredients of the foods in the menu. We need an int property, int ID property, and a name for the ingredient. Okay, so it would make more sense to rename this, so to put a name like dishes or something, rather than menu. And then we're going to be creating another model in order to connect the dish with the ingredient, because one dish can have multiple ingredients and one ingredient could be part of many dishes. So we'll name this like this helper model dish ingredient. we need an ID for the dish, a dish ID. Of course, the property of type dish will name this dish. The same thing goes for the ingredient model, so an ingredient ID. And then down below, an ingredient property. So now we need to go to both the dish and ingredient models and connect them to the dish ingredient helper model. So we need the list of dish ingredients. I've renamed this. I had a typing error there. We'll name this dish ingredients. And this had to be a list. We'll make this nullable, and we can just copy this down and paste it in the ingredient model as well. Okay, so now we need to add a folder for the context. Firstly, we usually store the context in a data folder. So let's just create one. And we can then add a context class in it. You can name this something like menu context or something. So firstly, we need a menu context constructor. The menu context class has to inherit the DB context right there, and okay, so the constructor takes a DB context argument there. Let's just import a few things here firstly. So this here was DB context options. So everything that I'm writing here is just by default what we need in every context, so really don't need to learn it. Next we need a non-model creating method here, so we see this was created itself. And firstly we need to specify here the relation between the dish model and the ingredient model. So we need to specify here basically that they are both many-to-many, they both have a many-to-many relationship with each other. So first we need to specify the keys that we have written in the dish ingredient helper model. So the first one was the dish ID, which connected the model to the dish model, and then the ingredient ID. So then we need to specify the relationship of the dish and the ingredient with the dish ingredient model and with the ingredient or the dish model. So firstly we write here for the dish model. So basically what we are doing here is that we are saying that the one dish is connected to many dish ingredients, and we specify the foreign key, which is the dish ID. We're gonna copy this down and do the exact same thing for the ingredient model. We just need to change a few things here. So one ingredient is connected to many dish ingredients, and we specify the foreign key also. So we need to create two DB set instances for each model that we created. So one for the dish model, and we'll name dishes. One for the ingredient model, we'll name it ingredients. and one more for the dish ingredient. Okay, so what's left for us to do now is we have created successfully the models, but we need to add some data in it. We need to add firstly some data in order to create just one dish item in our application. So we're writing here that the dish has some data. So we are giving it an ID of 1. And we'll name it something like, I don't know, for this video I'm just going to make it the menu out of pizzas. So like margherita. I'm setting the price to 7.50, and for the image URL we can just go to Google, so just pick a photo and we'll copy okay, this one's fine. We'll copy the image address there and we'll paste it here. It's this long string here. And then we can add some ingredients to it, to the database. So the first ingredient, we'll give it an ID of 1 and a name of something like tomato sauce or something. We can copy this and we'll make another one that we need for the margherita pizza. So we'll change the ID to 2 and we'll name it like mozzarella or something. So these are the 2 things that make a margherita pizza. And the last thing is we should connect the first model, the margherita pizza, with the 2 ingredients, with the ingredients model. So in the dish ingredient model, we are basically just going to specify the ID of the dish model and the ID of the ingredient model. So a new ingredient. The dish ID was 1 and the ingredient ID, so the first ingredient had the ID of 1. And we can do the same thing for the second ingredient. Okay, so dish ID 1, ingredient ID 2, and I think everything is set for the database. Everything looks okay. Just looking if I forgot something, but okay, so now we need to connect the project to the database, to the SQL Server database. We'll just go to there to Server Explorer and create a new SQL database. We need the server name firstly, so let's just open up SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so here's the server name, and I'm just copying it down and pasting it here. Then we just need to give a name to the database. Menu database or something. The database was created, and here in the property window here, we need to copy down the connection string and then go to app settings.json. We need to create a connection string. So firstly, connection strings equals, so we'll give it a name to the connection string. I usually make it this like default connection string, but it doesn't matter. And then we just paste down here the connection string that we copied. We need just to add the encryption of false because we're not authenticating with the database with a password or something. The last thing is we'll need to go to program.cs and we'll need to add a service here. And I have this copied down somewhere. It's a long line, but basically we just need to, basically what we do here is just put the context name there, and we put the connection string name also in the name, so the default connection string name. And basically what we're doing is just connecting the context with the connection string so it can connect them to the database. We just need to import here the data because the context there was not known. Let's first run the project, and then we need to add the migrations. So we need to give it a name like initial migration or something. So we hit enter and the migration was created. We just need to update the database so the changes can be saved. Okay, I forgotten. The syntax there was wrong. I needed a dash. When I entered this encrypt in the connection string, this shouldn't be a colon, it should be an equal sign actually. Just changed it there. Just update the database one more time. Okay, so now we just need to add the controller. I just named it something like, usually the controller has the name of the module, but I'll name it menu. That's the name of the application. I'm just importing a few things. So the data folder, in order to connect to the context and the models as well, we need there. So we just have firstly an index function there. So let's just go to the views. So we're making a folder called menu, and inside it we can add a view page. We'll just leave it as that, index. So at the top we're importing a list, the list of the model, of the dish model. So menu dot models dot dish. Here we can name the view data title, so the title of the tab to be like index. Or menu index. So firstly, let's add a div with the class of container for some paddings and margins. Inside, we need to make another div with the class row, so that we can input the elements in a row. And now we need a for each loop. To loop through the elements in the list that we are importing. So we'll just make it var item in model. And here we can just start inputting the data that we want to show in it. So firstly, we'll make another div with the class of column6, which basically in Bootstrap means that whenever we input a div in a row and we give it the column 6, so it takes 6 out of 12 imaginary columns in a Bootstrap row. So this div will take just half of the row. And then we can input the item name, the item's image, URL, and the price. Okay, let's make it a header for the name, so it's a little bit bigger and in bold. We can just run the project firstly to see what we are doing. Okay, so we forgot to make the index function. So here the view has to return a modal. So, okay, and firstly we need to import the context there. We need a variable firstly for the context, the menu context. We'll just name it index context, and then we need a constructor for the context, and there we give it the context variable. Will give it the context. Okay, so this is a async await function, so we need to change a little bit the name of the function, so async task. And then in the view we can await the context that dishes. And to list async method basically just lists all the elements in the context. Okay, so this has to work now. We need to see it in the index page. We need to see our data now. Okay, so it works, but we need to make some changes here. So firstly, the image URL has to be inside an image tag in the source attribute inside it. So inside the style attribute, we need to specify the width of the image. I'll just make it like 75% or 70%. And we can add a class to each div element in order to place them in the center of their div. So if you can open up the Bootstrap documentation for the placing of the elements, we need to first make the div flag, so like a flex box, and we can then write justify content center. So this basically just makes the divs flex box and then puts the elements in the center of the main div. And we can copy this down to each div that we have here. And we could format the price a little bit, so it takes two string and two, which basically means 2 places after the comma. And just run the projects one more time and see if all this data looks better. Okay, so this looks fine. It had to take half of the row and it's in the center of it, so this looks okay, but we need also to add some. So now for each item we need to add the details page. So we can just go to the controller one more time and we can add a details function there. This is also going to be an async await function, so the details function here takes an int ID. And we'll just have a variable called it something, a dish, and we'll loop through the context of dishes for the element with the ID of the model that we have in the argument. So this is pretty much the syntax to do it. So the element.id in a database has to have the ID of the element in the argument. So now in the details page, we also need to include there the ingredients. So in the index page, we didn't need to show all the data, so we didn't show the ingredients of the dish. But now when you open up the details page, we need to include there the ingredients. So firstly, we'll just write include the dish ingredient. And then also include the ingredient. So we are specifying here the connection of the dish with the dish ingredients helper model, and then with the ingredient model. Then we can just return the view. It's good also to have an if clause here in case the dish is null, and just return a not found page. So now we need to go to the view pages, and we need to add a details view page. We'll name it details. So now here on top we need to import just a model, not a list of models, because it's just one singular model that we have in the details page. So model menu dot models dot dish. We can put a title of the tab here in the view data variable. Of course, we need a container div to give it some stylings. Then we need just to put each element in the center also. So we don't need the column div because we just have one singular element. So firstly the title of the model. And here the syntax is a little bit different, so we just put model.name. So different to the case when we have a list of models imported. So and just go to the index view page and just copy something down, because these are pretty much the same. So we need to change here also model.image URL. Okay, let's just set the width to 50% because it's a whole row here. It's just one item. And down here also. So here we need to add the ingredients, which we did not have in the index page. So we'll just make a list here. Make the for each loop to loop through each item's ingredient. So item in model.dish ingredient, I think. Dish ingredients. And here we can make some ordered lists, some lists. Just input item dot ingredient dot name. So this has to work, seems fine. We got to add a button here in the index page so that the user can go to the details page then. So we just need to add another div, and inside of it we need to input an anchor tag. So we can specify the action, just pretty much the name of the function in the controller. And we need to specify the route ID or the ID that the function details takes. So this is item.id. And just some styling. We'll add a class of button, and button info is the color. It's like a light blue color. Okay, the button is too small because we didn't input any name in the button. So inside the anchor tags, we can write view dish. So this looks fine. And here we have the details page, which needs some styling. The ingredients should be listed as a list. So I've written down it should be list, not li, not il there. And we can add here another button in order so the user can redirect to the index page. Just add an anchor tag with a class of button and button info. And the action is index. It doesn't take any parameter, any argument, so. And the name of the button back to the menu. So the list should be ordered now. Should be presented as a regular list. Okay, so it looks better. And we have the button to go back to the menu. So this is great, but now we can add some more. We can add some more data to our application, and the easiest way to do it, instead of going to the to the context is to open the database in the SQL Management Studio and to open each model. So it would take a lot of time if we did this in the context by adding the data to the models there. So we can just open the tables from the SQL Server Studio. Okay, and so we can write this manually here. We can write the names. I'm just adding a couple more dishes here. So we can write the names here. I'm just making a pepperoni, because I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm doing it with pizzas only. So just give the price. And we have to find an image of a pepperoni pizza. Let's see. I'm just taking this one. So copy image address. And we input here the URL. Okay, let's just hit enter here. Okay, so let's just add another one, like vegetarian. Let's just find an image for it. Okay, so let's input here the URL and just put a price in it. Like 9. So just hit enter. It is saved. So I'm leaving it with this. Let's just go now to the ingredients table. So edit top 200 rows. No, this is the dish ingredients table. Let's just go first to the ingredients table to add some ingredients for the two pizzas that we made. We can just make like pepperoni, a couple of veggies would be okay. Like paprika and mushrooms. Okay, I'm just leaving it with that. So now just need to go to the dish ingredients to connect this to each other. So to connect the second dish with the third ingredient, which was pepperoni. Wait, it needs to be connected to the first and second actually, but yeah, just connect them to the 31st ones, which was, I think, sauce and mozzarella. Yes. Okay, so let's just connect the third one to the paprika and mushrooms ingredient. So just run the project. Okay, you can see the data is displayed dynamically here. So we have the two pizzas, which all have the details pages created. We can see in the URL above that the index is displayed there. So another thing that we can do here is just to edit a little bit the layout page. So let's just remove the home and privacy navigation items. And what we can add here, we can add a search bar button to filter through the data. And I've handled this in the previous video, how to add the search bar, but in this one I'm just gonna style it a little bit better so it looks nicer. So inside the navigation item here, or we just need to add a form. The action needs to be redirected to the controller named to the index, not to the menu controller. And yes, the action is index. And the method when we filter data was get. So right now here, just need to add an input firstly. Okay, so just one tag. So I'll add some styling to it to make it a little bit different from the previous video. So I'll give the width of 80%, and the submit button is going to be an icon. We'll make it like 20%. So we'll float this to the left side, which basically means that the input and the button then will be both floated to the left side, so they are in one single line. And the border radius will just give a corner to the, we'll just make it a corner to the top left, search bar. We'll just make it a little bit around it, and we'll, I'll say like 20 pixels. And to the top, to the bottom left radius. So here we're just making it a little bit around it on the sides. I'll make the background transparent. This was it for the styling. Now just the type of the input has to be text. We need a name for the input, so we can take it and handle it in the controller then. So name search string. And a styling of, we can edit we'll make it as a form control, which looks better. So we'll give it the class of it. So this was it for the input. Now for the button, in this time I'm going to store an icon in it. So I'm going to CDN awesome, font awesome. This is just a website where, okay, first we need to import its library, and they have some nice icons there. So just firstly, we need to import the library here in the header, in the layout page. Just copy paste it there. And then down here, when we make a button, we can add an icon in the middle of, inside the button text, we can add the icon. So firstly, just for the styling, we'll make this 20%, and we'll float this to the left as well. So both the input and the button are in one single line. So I don't want any border for it, so it looks a little bit nicer. I'll give it a background of transparent as well. I'll give it a height of 40 pixels. This was it for the styling, and the type of the button has to be submit. And inside the button now, here's the icon that we can import from the Font Awesome website, which have some nice icons there. So we just need to add an icon and have a class, the search, for this search icon. So this is the website where we can go, fontawesome.com, icons. So here you can go and find any icon that you want, and you can import the icons. Mine I searched for before, and it has a class of FA search. I'm just gonna save the project firstly to just see what I'm doing here. Okay, so you can see this nice search bar here. We can see the search icon there. It just needs to be a little bit more in the middle. So in the list above, we can add the styling margin of auto, which basically means that it's equally distance from the left side and from the right side. So this has to be now in the middle. In the middle of the page, so this looks very good, I think. As a search bar, this is actually pretty nice. We just need to handle now the functionality of the search bar, which I said that we previously did that in a previous video, but I'm just showing it here also. So we'll just go to the controller, to the index. So in this variable, we'll just make a link query. So we're just looping through the context. So the information in the database, we're looping through the context of dishes. This is just the syntax that you usually do it, and we need an argument, the search string, which was the name of the input in the form that we had. And now we can make an if clause if the search string is not null or empty. Okay, so we need to we'll take the dish variable here, and the dishes, it's better, it sounds better. We'll just make this lambda expression that you usually do in this case to find specific data in the database. So we're searching by the name of the dish. Here we can return the view, we can substitute here the context.dishes with the dishes, and we can copy this and paste it down here also. So in case the search string is not null, it goes to the view in the if clause. Okay, the functionality should work fine now. We can just try it here when this loads. So just write pepperoni, or just pep, and it shows down here. The details page works as well. So this was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.